Welcome to Speaking of Supply Chain, where we explore trends, current events, and innovations impacting the logistics and supply chain industries. I am your host, Ellen Wood. I am joined today by Anna Keim and Gregory Perez, and we are going to be talking about urban logistics today. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello, thanks for
So,
having me.
it's great to have you both here today. And I know that this is going to be an interesting topic. Urban logistics was the topic of our very first Speaking of Supply Chain episode. So I'm excited to come back to it and see what is new, what else is going on out there in that arena and this particular project that we're going to be talking about. But first, let's take a quick break and talk about something a little bit off topic. So my icebreaker question today is, what book are you currently reading, or have you the last one that you read? What have you recently finished reading? Gregory, do you want
Well,
to go first?
yeah, okay. I'm at the moment reading Duurzam Online Shoppen, which literally translates as sustainable online shopping. That has been written by Elaine Bildio-Rai, which is a doctorate in, I would say, logistics and e-commerce in general. It gives you a pretty good view if you're a novice in the domain of e-commerce or logistics on what are your impacts on society, on which choices you make have an impact on what's happening behind the scene, I would say.
Okay.
And then it gives you some tips to, okay, if you want to have a positive impact, how do you, as a web designer or as a company launching a web shop, how you make your best choices to be the most sustainable possible.
Interesting. Anna, what about you? Are you a reader? Do you like to read? Do you read a lot?
Yes, I really like to read. I'm currently not having so much time to read, but I my last book I read was more about nutrition, so it's called like, well, it's Spanish, from a Spanish author, but it's like Train Your Nutrition, because it's related to, okay, if you do training, like sports training, so how should you maybe relate your nutrition? And I liked it because it was also some basic information, which sometimes I think we should get already in college or at school. Like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's some basics that we say, yeah, we don't learn that, and so yeah, it was fun to read. But yeah, I'm looking forward to now summer break and holidays and really get going to read maybe some novels again or something. I still have to look out for what to read, but yeah, I definitely like reading, and but I'm more the reader that reads like pleasure, or like, yeah,
Hmm.
something for fun, or because it's a history, or like reading, for example, some book you read, Gregory, would for me be like, okay, if it's not really written like interesting, then it would be hard for me to read it. So
I agree. So I belong to two different book clubs, and there's a third that I'm trying to join, which is just ridiculous because I don't have time to read 3 books a month. Even though I do read 3 books a month, but I don't have time to like read 3 books that someone else is telling me to read. But we have a book club here in the office, and we've just finished up a book that was a novel that was a lot of fun. It's called All the Devils Are Here, and it's
Mhm.
part of a series. So it's one of those books where the author has written about these characters over and over and over, and different adventures for them. And this one is later in the series, so it was a little bit difficult. Of course, the author gives you all the information you need to know to enjoy the book on its own, but I really felt like if I had read the entire series up to that point, I would have known the characters a little bit better and it wouldn't have been so confusing. But it was such an interesting and fast-paced like mystery novel. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun book, but it's also fun to get together with my coworkers and sit down on our lunch break and talk about the book and have book club. So that's a really fun thing that we do here in our office.
Sounds
All
very
right.
nice.
So we are here to talk about some urban logistics today. So, I had mentioned that our first episode of Speaking of Supply Chain was about urban logistics, and that was very specific. It was about a study that we had done from a real estate perspective. But there are so many different aspects to the topic of urban logistics. What are we going to talk about today? Anna, do you want to start us off?
Yes, maybe we can. I mean, because the study we did, but it was conducted with GLL together, was having a more general focus, and also focusing on maybe the issue of space in a city,
Yes, very
which
much.
as a real estater, it's your core business somehow. And I think maybe the insights today, having Gregory as a worker at bpost, which is on the one side like more private company, but also like the the
National
transport
Postal
or
Company.
the cab parcel delivery. So we have another view from this side, what in urban logistic are maybe struggles and where are potentials, and what actually can be achieved. Because I think also today the cities are very struggling with, okay, what should be our solution or solutions, and I think it's hard for them to take the wheel and start driving into the into the direction they want. So yeah, I think this can be an inspiring example.
All right. So, Gregory, tell us a little bit more about this project. It's a postal, the Belgian Post.
Yeah. So
Okay.
so we're the Belgian Post. So initially a mail company, but evolving towards I would say parcel company also. So combining both services, because yeah, the world is changing, and
Mm-hmm.
we're also going forward as a company. So yeah, the whole concept we try to develop as a company, but also with the city of Mechelen, and together with the city of Mechelen is what we named the eco zone concept. Um, it's first started yeah as a how to say, purely a concept, but we decided to implement it as a project, and deployed it on a project city, which was Mechelen, where first we changed our fleet. So traditionally, we delivered by bike or with typical diesel vans,
Mm-hmm.
and there we changed that model towards a pure e-van delivery model. So all the diesel vans were switched to an e-van, quite
Mm-hmm.
easy, would say, but still we're talking about infrastructure works also being implemented. So 64 events were implemented in the city of Mechelen. And then on top of that, we expanded or we added an e-trailer to 30 bikes, allowing to consolidate parcels and mail to be delivered by bike at the end. So guaranteeing that all parcels in Mechelen and suburbs could be delivered sustainably at the end of the day. Today, the whole city and the suburbs are delivered um, without emission, and also sustainably in many aspects. I will come later on back on that. On top of that, so that was the fleet change. That's an easy one. It's from us. But then we added a dense network of pickup and drop-off points. In
Okay.
total, 53 pickup and drop-off points, which includes manned parcel and postal points. So those are the local shops where you can go pick up your parcel. But also on top of that, we developed or we added to that network lockers, unmanned lockers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was done in collaboration with private players, but also with the city, which is very important because when we're talking about a dense network, we're talking about implementing a solution of pickup or drop off in a maximal range of around about 400 meters or less of each and
Mm-hmm.
every citizen within the city. So every
Right, to make sure that there's something close to everyone.
yeah, indeed. So to give an image, it's the idea behind it is you take your coffee, you put your coffee on at home, and you have a parcel that has been delivered when you weren't home, and you go on foot to the locker or to the pickup drop-off point near your house and go back, and the coffee is still warm. Avoiding avoiding taking the car
Yeah.
or making a trip, which can generate a lot of CO2 on your way also. And then finally,
Interesting.
there's a final stage on that, and that's the developing local solutions. So for local logistical solutions, such as a city hub, a micro hub, or local services. Yeah, when we are talking about local services, it's really services with the goal to avoid unnecessary transport of those parcels, because
Hmm.
traditionally parcels travel a lot of distance, but sometimes it's not necessary and it can stay within the city. So there, we're trying to develop such a solutions, and that's where we're on board of ULADs, trying to get partnerships with some local companies, in order to create a sustainable way of working. So
How interesting.
yeah, and then
Yes.
combining all of that in Mechelen, so the results after 2 years were 97% less CO2 emitted
Wow.
by our activities, but also by the um, how to say, the ways that citizens are picking up their parcels. But not only CO2 is important. We often mention CO2 because that's kind of the big thing.
Right.
But 77% of microparticles and ox particles are also being diminished. So it's not only about CO2.
Hmm.
It's about the other thing that are also polluting that are diminished. So that's
Exactly. All those particulates.
yeah, indeed. And the consequence is not, as I mentioned, it's not only the consequence of the fleet change, so going from a diesel van to an e-van or a soft mobility solution, but it's also thanks to the increased density of those pickup and drop-off points. Only the part of the pickup and drop-off point diminished by 0.6 tons CO2 emissions. To give an idea, it means a reduction of 85% of the emissions related to pickup of drop-off of parcels by citizens themselves.
So it's not measuring just what the fleet is able to
Yeah,
accomplish in terms of sustainability measures. It's also measuring what the citizens and the people who are utilizing those postal services are able to reduce their own carbon footprint.
indeed, and that they're
Yes.
all doing that naturally. It's not. It's a choice they made, but it's not. Oh, I'm doing it green. No, it's the easiest choice, and it's the greenest choice. So
Mm.
it's kind of a thing. Yeah, say it's going on itself, and it's very impactful for a city because you're diminishing also other impacts because we are sustainability. We are talking about emissions, but we're also talking
Hmm.
about other sustainability goals. So, and then generally, we had a study conducted by the University of Brussels, and there it
Hmm.
showed us that in general, our social and ecological cost on society was reduced by 32%. So
Oh,
those
wow.
are the indirect costs that are generated,
Hmm.
such as impact on urban congestion, noise pollution, accidents, hospitalizations, infrastructure damage, because all those things, as a company, we don't have to pay them directly, uh,
No, but you have to pay them in some way, shape, or form. Everyone
but the
does.
society needs
Mm.
to pay it, indeed, and
Hmm.
Mm.
throughout our taxes. But it's it's part of it. So so it's very important for us that we approach it really from several sides. Um, So as you figured out, for us, it seems those are great results and better than expected when we launched the project a few years ago.
So, what were some of the biggest challenges in trying to implement this? Was this your vision from the beginning for this particular project, or did it evolve throughout the process that this was going to be the end result? How did you go about trying to implement this? Because this seems, I mean, those numbers seem significant, and to have that as a goalpost and say we're going to reduce emissions by 97%, that feels like a huge amount of effort.
Mhm.
Was that intentional, or was that
We didn't
just
know
a great result?
we didn't know what the results would be at the start of the project. We had some expectancies, but seeing that,
Right, you had an
yeah,
idea.
yeah, we had an overall idea. Okay, if we implement events and if we implement soft mobility solutions, but how great the impact would be, and it differs also because not every city has the same shape, has the same needs, so it's possible that in one city we're at 97%, at the other we at 82%. But it all depends on how organizationally you can work on that and towards that. But the parts that really surprised us was the parts where the impact is great for the local citizens, and they don't even have to worry about it. It came naturally, I would say.
It was just a natural lifestyle change for them, and so simple to do. And honestly, it sounds like, based on the way that it's set up with those drop-off points and those lockers, that going out to get the mail before your coffee gets cold, that's a convenience. And I assume that it was marketed as a convenience as opposed to a sustainability initiative. We're going to have your mail closer to you. You can get it before you get your coffee. So,
Not only mail,
that sounds
also
like
parcels, also the parcels.
are
Yeah,
also
yeah, yeah.
parcels. Okay. So I would assume, and this is just a cultural difference. So in the US, we have mail in many places where it is delivered directly to the home, and I assume that was the case, or that was
Still the
not the case
case.
prior to
It's
this.
still the
It's
case.
still
Yeah.
the case.
So it's a combination. The fact we are doing it by van and soft mobility. So the main choice of the end customer is always to be delivered at home.
Of
But
course, we're selfish.
yeah, it's just a choice. It's easy. It's yeah. But at the end, we provide throughout the creation of this network, we provide an alternative solution where
Hmm.
sometimes you're not home. So in bigger cities in Belgium, yeah, we realize that a given number of parcels cannot be delivered at home because we are just working at that time. So it's natural we cannot deliver. And at that moment, we propose an alternative, and they can choose to be delivered there. So throughout an application we also developed, each and every one can give its home address, so log into the system and say, okay, my first choice, if a parcel is delivered by bpost, is to be delivered in the locker at the corner of the street, or at the
Hmm.
mall where I'm planning to go after my work today. So
Hmm.
it's creating a convenience, and making the choice possible. Because sometimes you just don't want your parcel to be delivered at your neighbor, or
Hmm.
in an insecure place, I would say, which there,
Or your
Exactly.
neighbor isn't home as well because he's working
yeah,
also.
yes, but it can also be a choice to do deliver at your neighbor, because that is one of the choices you can make. But creating
Hmm.
that network creates a number of possibilities, or an increasing number of possibilities where it's best fitted for you to be delivered. And that's kind of the mindset we are trying to provide to our customers.
So, Anna, what were some of the hurdles that had to be overcome in this project? I mean, this sounds like a huge undertaking, and you've said it's been 2 years in the making, and you're starting to discover some of these results and some of these facts and figures on emissions reduction and you know, customer service and how much the citizens are enjoying the flexibility of this new system. But what what did you have to go through to get this in place?
Well, I think, as I understood it as well, Gregory, Mechelen was kind of your living
Yeah,
lab. So you had like the chance to, let's say, play there a little bit. And I mean, we visited it last year as well, and it was really surprising. And I think, yeah, it went well. But then, as you mentioned before, the part where we tried to collaborate, for example, with other logistics players, yeah, that there was the point where we struggled because I think maybe the mindset in general is not ready yet, or the pressure from more a governmental respective or governmental side is not there yet to force companies to do
yeah,
joint venture or collaboration.
Hmm.
So yeah, the I think the let's say the setup in Mechelen is very a good combination of one side the better fleet and also these pickup points on micro hubs. But I think there is a further step where you say, okay, now everything that is moved, let's say, throughout the city is done with one, yeah, via
one shipper. Yeah,
one company or one shipper, and so to combine it, because I mean, just imagine that, okay, bpost has now its parcel locker scheme and their fleet, but if there would be like with the same volume or even less volume, but UPS and DHL and
Hmm.
name them all, then the city would get very crowded. So I think, yeah, this is the really challenging point for,
yeah,
I don't know, maybe the next even 5 to 10 years, to get there, yeah, on a thinking that is more collaborative and yeah, really working together. But that's a challenging point for every city and for every company. I think, at least here in Europe, everywhere.
It's interesting that you say that because in that study with JLL that we did last year, that was one of the perceived risks, that coordination efforts and who would shoulder the burden of the cost and the dependence, the interdependence of those various service providers, the, you know, the bpost, the DHL, the UPS, all of FedEx, whatever those are, in that local economy. They weren't sure that they were going to be able to play nicely together in the sandbox
Mm.
and cooperate. And so it's interesting that that is still an issue because there's so much to be gained. I mean, Gregory, you were talking with some really big numbers there, and if each of those companies could make that significant of a reduction in their own carbon footprint, even in that one geographical area, that would be
Mm.
significant. That's a significant savings to those companies. And you know, in general, in terms of sustainability and our ecology, to make sure that we're, you know, being good stewards of the planet that we're on. Um, so one of the other things in that study that I'm going to bring up, and that was that technology was going to play a large role. And you were talking about the e-vehicles, the e-vans, and now this flexibility in terms of, you know, where to get a package delivered and being able to have that choice. You know, what other aspects of this project needed to involve technology? Because I mean, is there an app that people go and select? Is it a website? How do they interact with this functionality now? Because you said it is a
hmm,
lifestyle change, but you know, there's so much going on in the background. All you've
there's
talked
yeah,
about is all the great
yeah, yeah,
things that happen, and of course those are the highlights. We want to highlight those, we want to share this success and be really
yeah.
excited about it, but I can only imagine the amount of work that had to go into
Yeah,
this.
it's a project. I would say it's throughout time. So it takes time to make change, and we see technology is a big part of it. We wouldn't have thought a few years ago that technology would be at the stage it is today, but we are where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Here we
and
are.
And we don't want to imagine
yeah,
where it will be.
Oh
and
gosh.
there's that's what we saw most of the time. It's not really the technology that was the issue. The technology changed and people change with it, but it's accepting the change in technology that seemed difficult, not only for consumers that receive their parcels or mail, but also for the companies needing to adapt because they did some investment on older technologies and up until the moment that
Hmm.
that investment is rounded, the technology has evolved, um, and therefore it's accepting that technological change taking place, but that's also meaning reviewing our way of working. So generally,
It's true.
and
Hmm.
coming back on your question about solutions that are put in place, as I mentioned earlier, we have that My Post app. So customers, so end customers, but also the senders for us have the choice of implementing. So a sender has the choice of implementing, how to say, a choice when people are making a checkout for their goods.
Hmm.
But on the other side, we give also the end customer the possibility to choose himself on top of the choice he made on the website of the sender. So he has
Okay.
potentially two places. The fact that the sender implements it on its website, it's the choice of the sender to do it or not to do it. And this the application or the app that the end consumer can use, that's also it's a choice by the end consumer. So it gives it diversity of solutions and making it even more convenient. So, but at the end, it's always a choice of somebody making, and we are just implementing what they are asking us to do.
So this
Yeah.
this test, this test run was in Mechelen. Are there any other test sites currently
Yeah.
in progress, or are you
So
expanding this
we're
to
not
other
talking about a
locations?
test anymore. No, we yeah. So
You passed.
the test has been confirmed and applied, I would say, and now we are rolling it out. How to say? Our goal is to go to 50% of the Belgian population that is serviced this way by 2025. So this includes yeah.
That's
So that includes
impressive.
25 of the biggest cities in Belgium that will be delivered in this manner by 2025. So
What is the average inhabitants of these 25 cities? You know, what, like how to be
Yeah, how
to
well,
make
big
it
are
yeah,
they?
related. I mean, we're talking here with
yeah, yeah.
somebody in the US, so what's
If you're
a city
talking about
size?
Brussels and Antwerp, you're talking in millions of inhabitants.
Hmm.
But how to say, the second rank cities, well, I cannot say second rank because almost all the cities are that size in Belgium, but it's around about
Right.
50 to 70,000 people living there. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So what is going to be your biggest challenge for those larger major metropolitan areas? Is that more challenging,
Well,
or are the smaller cities more challenging?
the how to say, Brussels, for example, we're talking about Brussels, but for us, Brussels are 19 postal areas. So it's a postal
Hmm.
area is similar to a city normally. So
Right.
Hmm.
It's
yeah, so
individual
it
piece.
can be divided into 19 pieces. But we try
Okay.
to do it at once, but as good as possible. But there, we're trying to do that, and then evolving into the full Brussels cities, and then Antwerp, it's the same concept also. So we're not talking about only the city center, but really the whole of the city
The,
that claims itself to be Antwerp or Brussels.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
indeed.
entire metro area. So we have an expression in English that is, how do you eat an elephant? And
Yeah.
one bite at a time. Like you have to do it in smaller pieces because you can't
Mhm.
tackle the whole beast in its entirety. So no, that's interesting. So is the concept different in terms of going and taking this and rolling it out in a large city? Do you do things differently or do you just do it in those smaller pieces? I mean, does anything on the whole change when you're looking at that major metropolitan area with 19 different postal areas, or does it change
Every
and maybe expand a little bit in those smaller ones? I mean, there
every
has to
city
be
is
some
different.
difference, right?
Every city has its own way of doing things. So we
Hmm.
need to adapt to those ways that each city is working. Some of them accept us with open arms, so those are the easier parts. And they, yeah,
They're
they
ready
want
for
it
the change. They want
because they
it.
have
So of course it's
themselves
easier.
issues. If I take two examples, in Namur, which is the uh, French-talking part of Belgium, I would say the biggest city there. Um, Sorry, going back. So in Belgium,
Yeah.
you have two parts, and Namur is the head city of Walloon, and there we developed the project. At first, there was no sense of urgency of doing this, so nobody was
Hmm.
really, oh yeah, it's a great idea. Okay, we will implement it, but there was no
Hmm.
urgency there. And then suddenly the city decided, okay, the city center won't be accessible anymore to everybody all the time. And then things started changing because there was
Okay.
a limitation created by the city. And but the fact we already were rolling out the eco zone where we had already soft mobility, for example, in place, um, we weren't really impacted by that change. So yes,
Okay.
indeed, and
So you
that's
were
that's
ahead of
kind
that
of the
curve.
goal of developing it into the 25 biggest cities because we're going towards this. Europe is telling us, or telling Belgium, you need to reduce your CO2 emissions. You need to review the way your cities work and everything. So uh, at the end, we're going there. So let's do it at once, or try to do it at once. And then you have Brussels, which is another example. In Brussels, you have a lot of congestion. It's a capital of Belgium, so very a lot of
Hmm.
congestion, car congestion, and implementing those soft mobility solutions gave a solution that we are not blocking traffic during peak hours, but
Mm-hmm.
also the dense Speedo network make sure that we are not standing still in the middle of the street while ringing on somebody's doorbell and he's not home. So it's
Yes.
kind of a win-win
Yeah.
situation for us because we lose less time, but at the other hand, the how to say the citizen, um, or the people working in the city aren't impacted by our activities or less impacted by our activities, I would say.
Sure. So what, Anna, from your perspective, I mean, obviously the B post is hugely successful in rolling this out, and it's rolling out to more and more cities ongoing. Why are other companies not jumping on this bandwagon? Why are they not trying to do the same things? Or are they?
Well, I think they are, maybe not to that extent, or they're not so present in one city to have it like, yeah, their their playground and their solution implemented there. But I also think, as Gregory mentioned, I mean, there is the goal of the EU to reduce CO2 emissions in the big cities
Yes.
until 2030. But the cities haven't taken, let's say, that much action until now. For example, I live in Barcelona, and we have for 2 years, or yeah, 2 3 years now, we have like an emission zone
Hmm.
in place. Um, but if you're a resident in the area, for example, I have an old diesel. It's not so old; it's 10 years old, but okay, yes, it's already considered old. A diesel car, and if I wouldn't be a resident in Barcelona city, I couldn't go into the city.
Okay.
But as I live here, I am still like, um, I can
Allowed.
still have it. Yeah, I'm still allowed to go in. And also, that's not that there are like any fines or any. It's not like they are starting to control it maybe a little bit, but they don't do also like an action. Okay, if somebody is not playing by the rules, then he has to pay for it. So I think with more and more restrictions coming from the cities, the companies, and then not only shippers, but also think of all the industry
Hmm.
like food, beverage, delivering to the supermarkets.
Hmm.
They really have to then, yeah, consider changes. So I think it's still, it's I see it a little bit the way I worked during university, until I haven't had enough pressure that now the exam is like
It's
in two
looming.
days.
Yes.
I wouldn't start studying. So yeah, I have the feeling that, humanity works like this a little bit. If you don't have like somebody saying to you like, look, now you have to act, you say, okay, a little bit longer, maybe it's working. And yeah, I mean, there are a lot of companies have already things in place. For example, that their distribution vehicles are electric,
Hmm.
and so yeah, there's a lot of change. Um, and yeah, I think we will see more of this as well in the next years. But clearly, for me, there is missing a little bit, let's say, more restriction parts from the government, and also like a direction. So what is it? Is it more going to having collaboration and having an urban consolidation center outside of the city, or is it having parcel lockers, or is it having a shared fleet? So it's a little bit, okay, what direction should they go for each industry, let's say. So yeah.
Exactly. So many moving parts, so many different players. I mean, post and parcel is only one industry, as you were mentioning when it comes to
Yeah.
just the restaurant and the food and beverage industry,
Hmm.
trying to get those deliveries of fresh food into those city centers to those restaurants. How does that look for that local you know grocery wholesaler? That's
Hmm.
a completely different industry, and it's a completely different model. They can't use a locker to just drop off a crate of vegetables or fruit or food to a restaurant. That's not feasible. It has to be different. But
Yeah.
that issue of having that traffic, those vehicles, those emissions in the city
Mhm.
center still exist. So it'll be interesting to see how some of these cities solve the issue of those urban logistics in those city centers for the various different industries, because it's not a
Yeah,
one
indeed.
one size
Uh,
fits
I
all
w-
solution.
would like to add
No,
the fact
definitely
is
not.
also it's a mindset. It's a mindset as a company. Um, we as
Very true.
VPost made a choice not only to be the best in class, but to become a reference in sustainability. So when you say such things, you need to act on it, and sustainability is a way of working in all its aspects. We want to be, we are also a sustainable employer, for example. So we try to avoid working with subsidiaries. trying to every employee is a bpost employee. We still have services that are done by service providers, but those are very limited in Belgium. So it's also implementing uh, generally into your buildings, solar panels, making those changes uh, end to end. Not only saying you're trying to do it, but really acting on it and believing it can happen. 3 years ago with EcoZone, a lot of people were saying to us, "Oh yeah, it won't work. The world won't change." But we are standing now 3 years later, and we are just rolling it out nationally, and it has been financially checked. So as a company, we're also sustainable financially, or we need to be sustainable financially. So and therefore, it was accepted. And it was checked if it was in line with everything, and now the rollout is happening. So it's a mindset and a choice as a company.
Well, and I think you had mentioned that, you had tried this and they
Mhm.
thought you were going to fail, and you've proved them wrong. You've proved them wrong, and it's a fantastic success. And thank you so much for coming on our show today to tell us more about it. Um, where can our listeners learn more about the B Post project, and what the possibilities are in terms of what they could try to accomplish on their own, or within their own companies, or
Well, we
within
have
their own
the
cities?
bpostgroup.com/sustainability webpage, and there you
Okay.
can see our initiatives. And one of it is the ecozone initiative, where you can see where all the impacts we are working on, and what has been done already.
All right, the EcoZone initiative, and it's on the B Post website. And Anna, what about you? If a company out there is interested to learn about how they could try to implement some of these things, can they reach you on LinkedIn if they want to get a little bit more insight on what it actually takes to make a project of this caliber successful?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, and Miebach as well. And yeah, I think we are currently working on helping our customers in if they have any yeah, issues or problems within the cities delivery, or if even the city itself. It's not only the perspective of the companies that are, yeah, using the city of as their delivery point or whatever, but also the city themselves. They yeah, can reach out to us, and we can see how we can help them.
Fantastic. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode. Thank you so much, Anna and Gregory, for joining me today to talk about this project. I knew this project was taking place. I knew that this was going on, but I had no idea that the results were so staggering and impactful, and such a positive result from it. I'm sure that that is so gratifying for all of the hard work that you've put in for the past 2 years, to be able to come out and say this is what we were able to accomplish, because it's just amazing. I hope that our listeners enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. If you're listening out there, if you have a suggestion for a topic, or you would like to be a guest on our show, we'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to me at podcast@miebach.com. As always, thank you for listening to Speaking of Supply Chain. If you've enjoyed the show, please rate and review us on whatever podcast platform you prefer, and be sure to tune in next time.